Hey everybody, welcome back to another Tango Banter. This is episode number 44. And before I launch into this very juicy topic that we have ahead of us, I wanted to remind all of you that I am launching a 12-month musicality course starting in January, on January 3rd. And if you have been hearing me talk about it, and maybe I've tickled your imagination and your curiosity, but you maybe forgot to look up the info and you forgot to check it out. So this is your very gentle reminder to check it out. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. I would love to have you on board for this inaugural experience. This is the first time I'm doing such a long course because I really believe that there's value in going on a long journey with somebody and really being there for the full process of learning and integrating these concepts. And as we all know, musicality is not something you can get in just a weekend or couple of months. Musicality is something that is honed over time. And I think that when you have somebody there to help you, to guide you, to explain things, to answer questions, then it's a little bit easier to develop it in a more efficient way. So if that is something that you are interested in, I would love for you to check out the course and let me know if I can answer any of your questions. Now, today's topic actually has a great relationship to musicality, and that is the Capaseo, also known as the hottest topic on the social tango radio station, if there is one. There's an ongoing debate on the rules of Capaseo and what's appropriate and not appropriate and what to do about those who don't practice Capaseo. And it's a very lively dialogue that's going to continue into infinity, I'm sure. And we had one of these lively discussions on the Capaseo in my private group last month. Another little reminder, if you haven't joined the group, please do so. We'd love to have you participate in these conversations. So the topic was, what do you love or hate about the Capaseo? And as expected, overwhelmingly, it seemed that people are in favor of the Capaseo. The Capaseo, of course, is a strange etiquette that only exists in tango. And I know for a fact that for a lot of social dancers who don't dance tango, who are coming from a different genre of dance, the Capaseo a lot of times is the major obstacle to dancing, for them to dance tango, because it's so stressful and it feels so exclusive and so cliquish that, there's this rule that you have to abide by. And I will explain what exactly is Capaseo in just a moment, so that those of you perhaps who don't know the scope of what the Capaseo is might be curious. But the Capaseo seems to be something that always divides people, because there's a way that we can get attached to the different definitions that we have of what it means to execute Capaseo or not. So after that live discussion and the great chat that we had, I decided to do an episode on the Capaseo, but a little different from what I typically do, which is to philosophize about the different perspectives on issues. I guess I tend to do that, but today I wanted to really think about Capaceo in a more proactive way and think about ways that you can use Capaceo to your advantage. Not necessarily whether you're doing the Capaceo right or wrong and what you should be doing and how to do it, but more like if we take into consideration what you're really after, what you really want, and then how can Capaceo be used to your advantage to get what you want. So hopefully that is interesting to you. And so to begin our exploration of this topic, let me just share what is my current understanding of what the ritual of the Capaceo is. I did not know this until recently, thanks to the discussions that we're having inside the group. And that's another reason why I love having these chats in there, because I actually get to learn and clarify for myself things that I feel like I should know, but I didn't until recently. And I've been dancing for over a decade. And that is that the Capaceo is considered by some to be a ritual of the leader initiating the dance and asking through the gaze a follower to dance. When it is the other way around, when it's a woman initiating, it's called a mirada. So to me, the Capaceo is just the Capaceo. I just kind of lump it all together into one. But some people distinguish between the Capaceo, as is practiced by the leaders, and the mirada, as practiced by followers or the receivers of the Capaceo. The point is the same. The ritual, the etiquette, consists of a leader or a follower gazing, catching the eye of somebody that they want to dance with. And it needs to happen across the room. So basically, there's some distance between you. You're not like in front of the person. The distance seems to be important. And a key element of the Capaceo is the nodding of the head. So when the leader looks into the eyes of somebody that they want to dance with, they will nod their head in the direction of the dance floor. And if the nodding is reciprocated, that means an acceptance. And if it's not reciprocated and the person looks away, that means it's a rejection or that the person didn't see you, which happens a lot. So that's the first complexity of understanding the Capaceo, because then, there's that question like, do they just not see me or do they actually not want to dance with me? And so in that way, Capaceo can be considered an art, the art of Capaceo, because you both need to have a solid understanding of the steps, but then you have to have this intuitive skill of like intuiting in that situation, what are you going to decide? Is this a rejection or not? So it's complicated. So that is the Capaceo. And I think that most of the grumbling that occurs in the community are people complaining that sometimes dancers don't abide by the rule of the Capaceo, and instead they just come up to you, extending their hand and asking you to dance, which is considered impolite, improper, even insulting. Most of the time we don't like it because as receivers of the Capaceo or the mirada, it's uncomfortable to say no, to reject in person, looking into the person's eyes and saying no. So a lot of times people feel pressured to go dance, and it's not comfortable to say no. So there's a lot of grumbling about that because it's considered more polite and much more streamlined to just look away. But of course, there's some people that is actually more difficult and even more confronting to like catch someone's eye and then have this nervousness about are they going to say yes or no, and so they complain because they just want to be more direct and they just want to come up and ask, especially people who are coming from other dances. They're like, why are you making this so complicated? So the Capaceo, let's just say, is an agreement among tango dancers, among social tango dancers, that this is the way we aim to execute this process. Some people love it, some people don't like it, but in general, it's considered to be the etiquette, and we all kind of need to understand that and be aware of it. And that if we are breaking the rules of the Capaceo, it needs to be in an informed way, I guess, because all of us ultimately will be breaking those rules. The other grumbling that might come about is through just being dissatisfied with the way the Capaceo can happen in terms of the space and the lighting and people not being able to see each other. So a lot of times people don't have good eyesight, the lighting is low, and people who really want to uphold the Capaceo are then at a disadvantage because they might be trying to Capaceo, but the other person doesn't see, they don't have their glasses on. And so sometimes you have to kind of break the rule of Capaceo and do something different, or you have to, complain to the organizers about the lights being too low. But then if you turn up the lights, then the rest of the people complain, like myself. I don't like I don't like when it's too bright when I'm dancing. So there is a vision I have for a space that will have a well-lit Capaceo area for the dancers, and the dance floor has a different lighting scheme. That is my vision for a space one day, so you're all invited when I have it. Anyway, so that is basically the situation with the Capaceo, right? If we think in broader terms of like tango as one of the social dances out there, it's just a convention. The Capaceo is just a convention, a strategy that was developed by people, for people. And there used to be other strategies too. And this is something I'm actually really interested in researching at one point. The question of how did it used to happen when you're thinking about the grand balls that were happening in Europe in the 19th century. And I guess I'm inspired to ask this question by the show Bridgerton. Oh my gosh, don't judge me. Don't judge me. I mean, Bridgerton has no substance, but it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I can't handle it. So I love the show. It's pure eye candy, really. And there were scenes that were happening at these different social dances. And in fact, if you saw that show, I noted this. There was an episode where they actually played a tango. If you know the episode that I'm talking about, let me know what it is, because I feel like it should be notated that there was a tango song played on a show like this. And they had a system of reserving dances ahead of time. So the women would have this little bracelet with a little notepad, and then I guess the guy would come up and like ask the woman to put him on his list. And then sometimes they'd be like, oh, my dance card is full. So that used to be a thing, right? And it's not anymore. I think it would be fascinating to experiment with something like that. I feel like it would raise a whole other slew of fears and complaints and people will love it and hate it for different reasons. But that used to be something that was practiced at some point in the history of social dance. So with tango, we have this thing called Capaceo, and it is a tool, it is a strategy. It is also an art and an etiquette, and there's all this stylization to it that you can ascribe to, and you can believe that it needs to be done this way and this is proper. That's all true. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it's important to remind ourselves that it exists to help us. We as dancers are not tied to it in the way that we would be tied to a specific style of something, of doing something. Like if you're going to study ballet, you're going to look to practice certain movements and practice certain lines, and it has to be that way, unless, if you don't do that, it's not going to be ballet. And we treat Capaceo kind of the same way. We say, well, if you don't do Capaceo this way, you're wrong. And if you don't do it this way, it's not really tango. Some people have that belief that you're not actually practicing social tango if you don't subscribe to this rule, this etiquette of the Capaceo. I don't really think we need to be that rigid about it, because social tango is there for us. If we weren't there, there would not be any tango. We're the ones dancing it. So we need to figure out how to use what we have, the tools we have available to serve us. And that might sound kind of radical, I realize, because I might be saying, yeah, if you have a hard time seeing from across the room and you don't have your glasses on, should you value the upholding of the etiquette over your own experience and say, well, because that person can't see me, and I'm not gonna break the rules of Capaceo, I'm just gonna sit here, right? Because I value the rules so much. And I'm saying, why? I mean, there's no Capaceo police. Nobody's going to give you a ticket. And that fear of well, it's not really, well, who cares if it's not really tango? But you might get the dance. So you get up and you walk over to the person a little closer and you test something else out and see if it works. It might not, but my suggestion is that if you don't do anything, then certainly nothing will happen, or very rarely something will happen. But if you decide to be proactive in some way, even if it means massaging the rules or bending them a little bit, then there's a chance. And I know that some of you don't like this. You might not like what I'm saying, but I stand by it because I see it happening all the time. I mean, whether you like it or not, the reality is it's the people who are bending the rules who are more successful. They're going to get the dance because they are sort of being more selfish. And you might suggest that, oh, well, if everybody starts bending the rules, it will be pandemonium and we're going to totally lose control. But I really don't think that's going to happen. I think we have a long way to go before that happens. I would like to see all the women become more proactive about Capaceo, because it's just time to be more proactive. The reality is there are more women than men, and that's not going to change. And it's not going to change by women demanding that leaders change or become more generous, or they must, why are leaders not asking me, And that's just a reality that we have to be more proactive. And I even know now of 2 instances recently that somebody told me that there are some milongueros, some dancers, that consider it improper for women to initiate the capaceo and to ask for the dance. I recently actually heard an account of a dancer telling this woman that they're not dancing with them because they disrespected this rule of the capaceo. And because of that, they don't dance with them. First of all, I think that's a load of crap. I said it, okay? I think that's terrible to say to someone. But secondly, it's absurd. It's just absurd. And so anybody, if you come across that criticism from someone who says it's improper for you as a woman to initiate the capaceo, just ignore them, honestly, and continue on your journey, because 9 times out of 10, you'll be surprised. It's so often that the dancers that you think are ignoring you just don't know that you want to dance with them. It's so often the case. And there is a reality that women who are younger and attractive and hot are going to have a very different experience with capaceo than women who are not that. And that's just the reality. Let's just call this what it is, right? There is that dimension to every scene in the world, including tango. So whereas women who are readily getting capaceo very easily, they have to learn to say no and to be more choosy and to curate their experience, because otherwise they end up, dancing with all sorts of people and they're not enjoying themselves and they don't know how to say no or whatever. So they have that challenge, perhaps. But other women have to be more proactive. And, going into a milonga and sitting down at the same chair every time and just sitting there with your arms crossed and waiting might not be the best strategy. You might not be getting what you want. Now, if you're totally happy with that, don't just keep doing what you're doing. But I'm saying if you're dissatisfied and you're sort of like, capaceo is sort of, you're saying it's not working for you and you're not getting the dances that you want, I would ask you to reflect on what you do at the milonga in terms of your body language. If you're just sitting there with your arms crossed and you're sitting in the corner, then you definitely will get less eye traffic, right? So being more outgoing, going to where people are hanging out, striking up conversations. And I know some people are like, oh, chataseo, you're not supposed to do that. But, if you're an artist about it, realizing that we're not out there to disrespect people, right? You are out there to learn your style of the capaceo. And that actually, brings me very close to my advice on the whole thing. You're looking for your style of capaceo that works for you. For some people, all they got to do is walk into a space and they just attract all kinds of eyeballs. Other people are on the complete opposite. They're like invisible unless they do something. I have a friend actually who says that. She says, if I don't initiate, people don't even know I'm there, And so for that person, a person like that, you have to be more proactive. Otherwise, it's very tempting to fall into that trap of believing that it's because you're not good looking enough or because you are weird and nobody likes you. And it's, it's that little obstacle that we kind of have to deal with. Those feelings will come up, and that's not reality. Reality is everybody's just sort of falls on a different place on the spectrum, and it depends on lots of different things, and you're looking for what works as a strategy for you. So you might have to be outgoing. You might have to get to know people first. Some people are just like that, You kind of have to get involved in a group of people, and that group will introduce you to other people, and then you get your circle of community that you get plugged into. So there's different paths, and you have to sort of choose what you're going to do to get what you want. And I think that the best thing I can offer, the best advice in whatever your relationship to Capaceo is, and I always come back to that, is your musicality. I want to convey the magnitude of understanding the music in the role of the Capaceo, because you might not know that so many dancers will not dance with you for that tanda because of that music. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the music. And even, I've heard Horacio Godoy share this story that, somebody that he's danced with before, and, they kind of like, she came up to ask him to dance, and then this song started, and he was like, no, not at this song. I can't dance with you this song. And it was harsh to hear that, but it's a reality, is that especially when it gets to the more advanced level, seasoned dancers who really fall in love with the music, they really are curating their experience. They're looking for that perfect person to dance that tanda with. That's how I do it. That's basically my strategy. When you see me sort of, if you ever observe me at the Milonga, it's like the first song starts, and I'm just there, and I'm just like, okay, what is this song? All right. And then I start looking, and I'm like, who is the person for this tanda? Who do I want to dance with? And that includes me looking around and going, nope, not that person. I don't want that person for that tanda. It's got to be somewhere else, So it's such a huge piece of the puzzle that if you have that piece, then it sort of clarifies a lot of the other issues and things. So if you are interested, once again, if you feel like this is something that would be helpful, number one, come to my seminar, which is happening today. And depending on when you're listening to this episode, it might have already happened. But if you just message me, I can sign you in for the replay, or check out my course that is really meant to teach you exactly that. I really wanted to create a curriculum, a structured way for dancers to take in the pieces that matter, that then you can immediately go and apply at the Milonga. And of all the things that I've learned to do, musicality was the ticket for me to actually stay in tango. And I talk about this a lot. So whether you are a beginner or you've been dancing for a long time, that constant need for expression of musicality and self-expression, that's not going to go away. You're always going to come up against that, especially when you start dancing with more advanced dancers. And so for me, when I think about what is it that I'm looking for when I dance, it's that feeling that I'm dancing with another person who is just as in love with that particular song as I am, and that we can really play in that space. And to that end, I really feel that the more dancers we have who have that as a priority, the happier the whole community will be, and the easier it will be for people to get what they want and feel good about their dance and grow in their tango, get more dances. And it's just an ecosystem, it really feeds on itself and creates more and more opportunity for growth in that direction. So that's my suggestion. I'm curious what your experience with the Capaceo has been, especially if you're newer to it, because many people share how stressful it is to start that process of, looking into someone's eyes. And I know for me, it was, the hard thing was to look in someone's direction and then keep the contact, because you kind of want them to know you're looking, but you don't want them to know you're looking. And that fear of rejection. And so if you've had those experiences, and if you want to share some with me, you can reach out to me on social media at I'm So Tango, or email me at connect@imsotango.com. So that's all I have to say on the subject. It's a little bit of a shorter episode today. I'm realizing sometimes I just have so much to say on a topic, and then other times it's a little bit more condensed. But hopefully this has created some dialogue for you, and maybe we'll continue this conversation depending on what comes up from you guys. I always appreciate you sharing your experiences on the topics that I cover. So go forth and practice the power of your Capaceo. Next time you go to a milonga, try something new. Go for what you want. If there's that dancer that you're just, convinced they don't want to dance with you, but you really want to dance with them, maybe you strike up a conversation with them. Don't try to Capaceo them. Just have a chat with them. Say hello. And maybe you do ask them to dance. But choose something new and try it, and let me know how it goes. I want to know if something different happens for you. All right. We will continue this banter next week. Until then, have some great dancing, and we'll chat with you soon. Ciao.